Palestinians from West Bank, including East Jerusalem, who are detained. That's the highest we have seen in many years. That number continues to grow. So that's part of the answer. Coming to the question that was asked by Nick, and it overlaps with the previous question as well. The detention conditions are horrific overall, whether it is detainees from West Bank or detainees from Gaza. But also what is important to understand is everyone I've spoken to say that they have been moved from place to place. So it is not just in one place. So at some point, it is probably inside Gaza as the first step, because they estimate the amount of time it takes from a place that they have been first, quote unquote, arrested or detained to where they've been brought. They are blindfolded for many hours or sometimes many days, so they do not know exact location, but they guess it is within Gaza. So these places are makeshift places, and then they are taken again in large trucks, again mostly unclothed for hours, and they believe at that point in time they're probably gone inside Israel, but they're unable to say exactly where. The conditions there too are horrific. Initially, they are in groups, so someone could actually say like there were roughly about 120 or so. In some other case, it was another 200 or so. But then they're also then moved into smaller barracks or smaller rooms. There are interrogations, but I think from what I also heard is that depending on the profile of persons as they speak to them, and as the days pass, they categorize and differentiate the way they're treated. So there are some people who have gone through interrogation. Others may not be the case. The reasons for release, I've asked very specific question on that. And there is consistent response, which is, we do not know. We were not told. We were not even told that we're going to be released. We were simply blindfolded, brought to Kerem Shalom, and dropped. And that's exactly when we realized that we were being released.
Ravina.
Thanks, Nick. On your question on engagement, yes, the office and the High Commissioner himself have raised our alarm on a whole host of issues since October 7th, directly with the Israeli authorities as well as publicly. And every time we put out a report, for example, the West Bank flash report that Ajit just referred to on detentions, these reports are shared with the Israeli authorities as well. We have at least 2 reports coming up to be presented to the Human Rights Council. Again, these will also be shared with the Israeli authorities before they are made public. So the engagement exists. We, of course, have also repeatedly asked for access, and unfortunately, we have yet to receive a response on many of these.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Emma Farge, Reuters.
Good morning. I also wanted to ask, please, about the humiliating treatment of detainees, and specifically what you said about the diapers, actually. Is that something that is happening systematically? Are they forcing detainees to wear diapers, and why? And secondly, I'd like to ask OHCHR about allegations that Israel is exhuming graves to look for hostages. Is that true? On what scale? And is this a human rights violation? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ajit, you want to take this one?
Thank you. Yes, on the question on diapers, there were 2 groups. Some people who were released had prison uniforms still on. Everything that they had in the past when they were initially detained were completely taken away, including clothes, belongings, currency, etc., etc. That was not returned. So they came out in prison uniforms, or they came out in diapers. So we're not exactly sure why they were put in diapers and sent out, but they were clearly visibly shocked and even shaken when I met them and I spoke to them. So that's where it stands. On the grave issue, We have seen reports. Unfortunately, I do not have any more information than what we've seen in media at this point in time, but we'll have to look into it.
Thank you very much. Lisa Schlein, Voice of America.
Yes, hello, good morning to all. Yeah, the first question I have is actually, I think, to you, Ravina, and then I have one for Tess, okay? I'd like to, I'm not sure whether you really answered this. I imagine that you have directly confronted or at least spoken to the Israeli authorities about these allegations of torture and so forth. Could you confirm that, and have you received any response regarding that? Also, I may have missed it, but is there any estimate on the number of people that have been detained in Gaza? And also, would you comment on Prime Minister Netanyahu's rejection of the two-state solution? And then I'll just quickly ask my question to Tess, okay? And that,
yes, please.
Yeah, okay. That concerns. I was wondering how much aid is actually getting through to the mothers, the women, the children, the babies, and so forth in Gaza. And I have heard media reports saying that humanitarian aid, which actually manages to get into Gaza, is first co-opted by Hamas, and then afterwards it goes to the civilians. Would you comment on whether there is truth to that, and what measures are being taken in order to ensure the fact that the aid, little as it is, gets to the people that need it? Thank you.
Vina, you want to start?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa, for your questions. If you don't mind, I'll break them down a little bit. Have we raised concerns with the Israeli authorities about ill treatment, which may even amount to torture, of detainees in the occupied Palestinian territory? Yes, repeatedly, prior to October 7th and since then. These are unfortunately not new issues. We have had issues with ill treatment of Palestinian detainees by Israeli authorities over many years. On these specific, and on the report that Ajit had referred to, the West Bank report on detentions, in which we also documented ill treatment, humiliating treatment of detainees, that was also shared with the Israeli authorities. On the allegations, on the reports that Ajit is sharing today, from what he's learned from people he has spoken to over the past couple of days, I don't believe these specific ones have been put to the authorities yet. I can get back to you on that one. On the comments that you cited by the Prime Minister, listen, we're calling for an immediate ceasefire. We are calling for the space to be created for a solution, a lasting, durable solution to this long-standing, protracted conflict, an untenable situation. This means a ceasefire. This means a political solution. And as you know, the UN is fully subscribed to, fully behind the two-state solution. I think Alessandra will have more to add from the Secretary General on that.
Yes, the spokesman of the Secretary General said yesterday in answering a question is exactly on what you said, Liz, about the declaration of Prime Minister Netanyahu. The spokesman said the Secretary General's backing of the two-state solution is unchanged. As he said repeatedly, he believes that out of the tragedy that is unfolding in Gaza, we should use this as an opportunity to get things back on track so that the aspirations, the hopes, and the legitimate concerns of the Israeli people and Palestinian people are met, and with ultimately two states living side by side.
Sorry, Alessandra, I just wanted to check if Ajit would like to supplement what I said on detentions and, the concerns being raised with the authorities.
Yeah, and then we will go to Tess. Ajit.
Just perhaps one additional point to what Ravina said, which is we had actually come out with a press statement on detentions in Gaza. So what we received now confirms what we had put out, or there's a lot more here. So to say that this is not the first time that we put out on Gaza detention post October 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll go to Tess to answer the last question from Lisa.
Thanks for the question, Lisa. In terms of what aid is getting through to the mothers and the babies, UNICEF is delivering medical supplies such as obstetric kits and midwifery kits that help hospitals deal with all of these births. They include PPE and medicines, and also importantly anaesthetic. We've heard some stories of cesareans, for example, being performed without anaesthetic, which is a nightmare to even think about. We're also providing nutrition supplies for pregnant women, including nutrients and supplements like folate and iron, and ready-to-use infant formula. Many of the mothers are having difficulty breastfeeding because of their nutrition situation and the trauma, and so we're providing this ready-to-use infant formula that doesn't have to be mixed with water and can be given straight to a baby. In terms of aid diversion and looting, the way that we work at UNICEF at the moment is because of the telecommunications challenges, we're actually working directly with our implementing partners on the ground at our warehouse crossing point to coordinate the distribution of supplies. So a partner will come straight to us and we will load supplies onto their truck directly, and then they will go straight to the communities in need. So that's a very kind of direct, straightforward transfer. And then in terms of that transport movement, we take measures with our partners to safeguard aid delivery, to make sure that it goes to the children that need it, and we condemn any interference with aid because it obviously robs families of the assistance that they need to survive. But certainly the situation in Gaza is incredibly desperate, and we see some supplies being lost to families that are taking food and water, just doing their very best to survive.
Thank you very much. I see quite a few follow-ups to those questions. So I start with Catherine Piancon.
Thank
You
you,
have a follow-up,
Alessandra.
Catherine?
Thank you so much. In fact, it's a question to you and to Ravina. Antonio Guterres, the SG of UN, did mention during an interview in Davos that the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, did decline his calls. So I'd like to know if it's also the case of Mr. Volker Turk, as all the heads of agencies and SG are trying desperately to have a contact, I suppose, to convince the Israeli authorities for a ceasefire. So are the efforts of Mr. Turk also declined?
Catherine, if I may, I would not characterize the declaration of the Secretary General as you did. He said indeed that he would speak to Prime Minister Netanyahu, but and he couldn't until now. But he said also that he has been speaking with all others authorities and of Israel, but also with all those representatives of those states who have an influence on the conflict, and he has not stopped doing that since the beginning of this crisis. So I would not characterize it in the same way, but I'll let Ravina answer on High Commissioner Turk contact.
Absolutely, fully endorse what Alessandra said, also from the High Commissioner side. The High Commissioner has not had direct engagement with Prime Minister Netanyahu, but he has been raising the issue of Gaza with everyone he meets, with every member state that has influence, civil society actors. You'll recall that the High Commissioner for Human Rights conducted a mission in early November to Cairo and to Amman and to Rafah in Egypt as well. He had requested access to Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory. Unfortunately, we did not receive a response. We have again requested access.
Thank you. I see Catherine has her hand still up. Catherine?
Yes, Alessandra, maybe I did express not very clearly. Yeah, I know that SG is making a lot of efforts with all the heads of states and the authorities that could help in solving the problem. But I was particularly speaking about Prime Minister Netanyahu, that is apparently declining direct contact with the SG. And it is the same for Mr. Turk. I know that both heads are making the best efforts in order to find solutions. But did Mr. Volkertrick try to have a direct contact with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and was his efforts or his calls declined? Only with Mr. Netanyahu. The rest we know that they're making a lot of efforts.
Thanks, Catherine. Normally, we prefer not to speak about bilateral contacts in detail, but your question is very specific. I will check and get back to you if as appropriate.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Lisa, you also had a follow-up?
Yeah, a very quick one to Ajit. I had asked if you have an estimate on the number of Palestinians who are being detained by Israel, both in Gaza, and I think you came up with a number actually in the West Bank, but do you have one for those in Gaza? Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Sorry, I think, yeah, I did respond to this question initially. Unfortunately, we don't have the exact number or even a round figure. But what I can come to some kind of a conclusion that it runs into thousands. We've had 3 or 4 different sources. They all come into thousands, but there is a gap. And the reason for that is this is happening in an active conflict zone where people are unable to move, where NGOs and our usual partners are unable to function in the normal manner. People are being detained from different corners of Gaza, in north, in middle, and in Khan Yunis, and at different points in time. So it's extremely difficult to get a full number at this point in time, but hopefully we will reach that number, I mean, the total at some point. But the challenges of figures is not just confined to detention, it goes beyond. And that is because of the nature of war that we have and the intensity. So I'll stop there. But what I can say, so the commonality from different sources is that the detention number runs into thousands. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine, your hand is still up. Is that a mistake or a further follow-up?
Oh, no, it's a mistake. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll go to Nick, who also has a follow-up.
Yeah, again, just to Ravina, what does raised with authorities mean? I mean, is there any conversation? Catherine is talking about contact with the High Commissioner, with the Prime Minister, but are you just issuing press releases and sending them reports, or are you actually able to have discussions with anybody? And if so, at what level, and what response do you get in those contacts? Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for specifying. As I said, we don't like to get into the details of our bilateral contacts because they are exactly that. They're bilateral. We have many different avenues that we try to use to influence public, private, and the private tends to, it's important for it to remain private for obvious reasons. But to give a more direct answer to your question, what we mean by engagement, letters to the permanent mission, through the permanent mission to various authorities, conversations, press releases from both Geneva and from our OPT office. Ajit, if you have anything to supplement on that, on engagement, please do, or if you don't, that we'll leave it at that.
No, I think, Ravina, you covered everything. I mean, we have also sent series of letters on specific issues, so I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you. And the last question goes to Moussa. Bonjour, Moussa.
Merci. Oui, bonjour.
Pardon, je vous présente parce que nos collègues ne vous connaissent pas. Moussa Assis, our correspondent for El Mayadeen. Go ahead.
Une question pour Ravina concernant la Cour internationale de la justice. Je ne sais pas si la question a été posée, je viens d'arriver. Alors, quel est le point de vue de M. Turk et donc de la commission, donc l'organisation en entier sur cette question, donc la plainte de l'Afrique du Sud contre Israël à la Cour internationale de la justice. Quel est votre point de vue là-dessus? Merci.
Thanks, Musa. No, the High Commissioner is, of course, following very closely the consideration before the ICJ. It is important for independent institutions to make a considered evaluation of the arguments and then to come to a decision. We're very much looking forward to seeing what will come out of this. And of course, it's important to respect the independence of this court. So at this point, I'll leave our reaction to that.
Let's the conclusions. Thank you very much. I don't see other questions on this matter. Thank you very, very much, colleagues on the ground. Tess Ingram, UNICEF Communication Specialist, and Ajit Sanjay, our OHCHR representative in the OPT. I'll keep Ravina with me because she has another briefing for you on the situation in Sri Lanka. And good luck for the colleagues with their work. Thank you.
On Sri Lanka, we're concerned by the revised anti-terrorism bill currently being considered in the Sri Lankan parliament to replace the draconian Prevention of Terrorism Act. Repeal of the Prevention of Terrorism Act should have been a turning point for meaningful reform of Sri Lanka's approach to its internal security. But this proposed law instead risks perpetuating patterns of violations from the past. The proposed law is substantially identical to previous drafts that were withdrawn after widespread criticism. It defines acts of terrorism overly broadly, restricts the scope of judicial guarantees, especially with respect to challenging the lawfulness of detention orders, and it curtails the ability of the Human Rights Commission to visit places of detention, among other problematic provisions. If it is passed in its current form, the bill would grant excessive powers to the executive to restrict rights with limited or no safeguards against abuse of such powers. It would weaken the legal grounds needed for security forces to arrest individuals without warrants. It would also still permit lengthy pre-trial detention. We urge the authorities to meaningfully engage with civil society and other stakeholders to substantively revise the bill and to bring it fully into line with Sri Lanka's international human rights obligations.
Thank you very much. Any question to Ravina on Sri Lanka in the room? Yes, Robin.
Hello. Have you raised these points with the Sri Lankan government and had any response from them on these issues? Are there any signs that there might be some movement within the country that there may be lawmakers willing to go that way?
Thanks for the question, Robin. Yes, resounding yes. We have raised very detailed concerns with the authorities. In May last year, we shared with the government our preliminary comments on the bill. It's really quite detailed comments, and we pointed out elements that conflict with international human rights law. And we did urge them to hold further public consultations with all stakeholders, with political parties, opposition politicians, civil society writ large. We hope our calls will be heard.
Thank you very much. Ravina, I don't see other questions for you. So thank you very much for this briefing, and thanks for bringing us Ajit. And I'll turn to my left now. Jens, welcome. You have an update on the flood response in the Congo.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. Good morning, everyone. Indeed, a short note. In Congo, that's the Congo where Brazzaville is the capital, the United Nations is responding to a flood disaster unprecedented in scale for 6 decades and with hundreds of thousands of people in need of humanitarian assistance. Extreme rainfall since October last year has led the banks around the Ubangi River, which is a tributary to the Congo River, to burst. A flood emergency was officially declared by the government on the 29th of December. Some 3 weeks later, 9 out of the country's 12 departments remain underwater, and a total of 1.8 million people are affected. The floods have left local communities without shelter or access to primary health services. Villages, schools, and health facilities have been flooded, and many water points and sanitation facilities are no longer functional. There's limited or no access to clean drinking water or sanitation in the worst affected areas, and that is in the central and north of the country. Some 27,000 children are out of school. More than 350,000 people urgently need humanitarian assistance, according to our assessment. But access is a challenge because of the floods, and many villages can only be reached by boat or canoe. UN agencies have developed a response plan with the government with a total budget of some $26 million. The priority sectors include shelter, food security, nutrition, health and water sanitation, and hygiene. But that's just the immediate response. The floods could also have longer-term consequences. Our initial assessment estimates that 2,300 hectares of cultivated land have been flooded, which raises concern that means to produce food, for example, fruit trees and fishing gear, has been destroyed and livestock has perished. To support the initial response, an allocation of $3.6 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund has been made in recent days to address the most pressing needs. However, to implement the response, much more international funding will be needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll see, first of all, in the room, no hands up, so I'll go to Lisa Schlein.
Thank you. Good morning, Jens. I mean, the picture you paint sounds absolutely appalling, and you say that talk about the difficulty of reaching people and so forth. I mean, is any aid getting to these people? How are they actually coping? How are they surviving? Have any people been killed, or are they missing? Are they injured? Do they need medical aid as well? And I'm kind of wondering about the children and what their situation is like. Anything that you can kind of, elaborate upon to give a sort of fuller picture about how they're actually managing to survive with this situation as you painted. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lisa. And those are very good questions and very pertinent aspects of what we're looking at. We're still in the process of assessing the situation. I just spoke to a colleague there this morning, and she said it's very slow. Why? Because the infrastructure is not working. It's flooded. We can get to places up there in the north, for example, only by boat and canoe. So how do you make a proper assessment in these situations fast? It's almost impossible. So we are, of course, working on that because we want to give an informed response to this. That doesn't prevent us with the government of putting out an initial plan as the government has presented in coordination with us. I do not have any confirmed death toll or how many people are actually missing, to a large extent because of the reasons I just mentioned. These are numbers, unfortunately, that will come. We will see them in days and weeks and likely months ahead. How big this actually is. As I mentioned, it's a long-term disaster. We're looking at. We are warning that in the mid to long term, food security will be compromised. We need children to get back to school. We know, as I said, 27,000 kids are already out. That is also, a recipe for future problems if we don't get them back in a safe school environment. So that is what I can say. Our call today is, of course, for more international support. In terms of funding, international funding to the plan that is there, but it's also, for example, to the private sector. Markets have been flooded and destroyed. It's important to get that up and running again, and also to the private sector in the international community who may be helpful in the logistics response, because logistics is such a big challenge in this flooding.
Jens described Kailair. Maybe before I open the floor to further questions, you want to give your inside of the situation?
Yes, so thanks for inviting me to speak, Alessandra. The World Meteorological Organization, at the moment, we have a meeting of hydrological advisors taking place. One of them is an expert from Congo, Brazzaville, and I spoke to him last night just to get some details as to what's happening. I put his name in the chat for you, and so these figures that I'm about to give come from him. And so Dr. Jean Bienvenu Dinga is his name. He's the director of the National Hydrological Service of Congo. He said it's the most exceptional event since the catastrophic floods back in December 1961. Just to give you a comparison, then in 1961, there was a measured discharge of 80,000 cubic meters per second into the Congo Basin. And in December 2023, there was a measured discharge of 74,300 cubic meters per second. And on the 9th of January, it reached 75,000 cubic meters per second. Those figures are in the chat for you. As I've said, as Jens just said, it has resulted in massive displacement, in loss of life. There were forecasts. It was predicted to be an exceptionally heavy rainy season. The seasonal forecast for October, November, December did warn that there would be very heavy rainfall. It is a typical impact of El Nino in the region. And one other interesting thing that Dr. Dinga said is that Congo, like many countries, are really trying to improve their early warning systems. They, would like to embrace the Early Warnings for All initiative, which WMO Secretary General Celeste Saulo spoke to about earlier this week. But it comes down to lack of resources. There is no funding. There are no resources. Dr. Dinga told me that in 1995, there were 80 hydrological monitoring stations. So that's 80. Now there are just 13. So, we've seen a massive deterioration in the observation network in recent years. And with that goes the ability to issue early warnings. So thanks, that's it for me.
Thank you very much. And I see that Tariq has also put in the chat the link to a news which was issued by the regional office of WHO on the floods in this part of the world. Let's go back to the question.
Yes.
Please,
yes.
No, Catherine, wait. I take this opportunity to say that I always try to give the floor first to the journalists who are in the room to thank them for their presence. So I go first to Chris Vogt.
It's just a practical matter is that when we're in the room, we're typically not in the chat. And so we can't get the info. So if you can send us the
That's a
information
very good point
that you put in the chat or email, it would be great for us who come here.
Yes, that's a very good point. Thank you for reminding us of this. And also I understand from Katrina and from other journalists that what's in the chat cannot be copied as such. So that's for colleagues if they can send this kind of information also, at least also, or by email. And Ben, you had raised your hand. It was the same thing. Okay, fine. So Catherine, now let me come to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandra. Thank you so much. Exactly. I mean, kindly remind the spokesperson that we can not copy what they post in the chat. So it would be really appreciated if they could mail it. So like that, everyone would be able to have access to it, what just Christophe mentioned. My question regarding Congo Brazzaville, maybe Jens, regarding the regions that have the floods, are there regions that were used to be facing floods in the past? Or is it new? They've never been affected by floods.
Claire or Jens?
Yeah, I mean, that's thanks for the question. It's quite a broad one. We just heard reference to massive flooding 60 years ago. So of course there's been flooding before. We can also see in, the other side of the river in Kinshasa. I saw a news report yesterday with, people taking the pirogue down the street in Kinshasa. So there is flooding elsewhere. But the Congo is really a focus right now. And if I can just come back to a question that Lisa raised, because I'm getting some real-time info here. The official death toll is 23. And that is since the beginning of the flooding. As I mentioned, the heavy rain started already in October. That's where we are now, 23 deaths. And what we know of recorded displacement is 6,178. So those are the figures that we have as of today from the government.
Thank you very much. Antonio.
Thank you. So you said that 9 out of 12 departments are underwater. Do you know how this translates into land area? What percentage of the country is flooded?
Yeah, as our initial assessment says 2,300 hectares of farmland, if you like, which is, of course, what we're looking at, because that has a direct impact on, food production. The total area in terms of hectares, frankly, I do not know. But there are reports from, as you mentioned, 9 out of the 12 departments that they are affected to various degrees. The most affected departments are central and north. As you may know, they are called Plateau, Cuvette, and Likwala.
Thank you. I don't see other questions on this matter. No. So, Jens, thank you very much for this update. I'll go to Tariq. Tariq, you had an announcement, and I see in the chat that Emma also wanted to ask a question. So maybe just start with your announcement, and I'll go to the floor. I'll go to Emma. And sorry, I have just quickly seen Claire's face. Claire, is there anything else you wanted to add? No, I don't think so. Okay, so let's go to Tariq for the announcement and the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessandra, again. So just to go step back on the figures that I said about Gaza. So I sent to few people who asked by email. Now, we have a little issue at WHO with the platform we use to send information to journalists as of late last night. So I can't really, I'm not in a position to send to everyone through that platform, to the Palais media list. So I will have to do one by one. So whoever wants to get...
Tariq, it might be just easier if you send it to us, and then we can distribute to everyone.
I did. So it's
to us, to UNICEF.
Yes. So lunch has been
then,
so if
then
you can then help, then it would be easier.
Yeah, sure.
And then, it's also issue of that I'm going to talk about now. So we have a executive board coming next week, and we want to send a media advisory with all the information. Hopefully we will sort out the problem, and we will be able to send this information during the day, but I will just give it to you now so you have it. So as you know, we have our regular executive board meeting. It's a 154th session, and it will take place from 22nd to 27th of January. Now, you remember it's a 34 body, 34 member states that are elected for 3 years, and the role is really to implement decisions and policies of the World Health Assembly, and to facilitate the work of the World Health Assembly. So this executive board is taking place from 22nd to 27th, starts on Monday at 9:30, and from Tuesday it will be working from 10 o'clock in the morning until 5:30, with a break between 12:30 and 2:30 in the afternoon. So all the documents are already on our website. So we have a provisional agenda. We have meeting documents. We will also be having the daily time table. So this is on our website. And again, once we send this media advisory, you will have the links as well. If you want to consult it now, just go to WHO website, Governing Bodies Executive Board. So proceedings will be webcast as always. So you may follow that. So Director General will deliver his report on Monday at 10 o'clock. So we will have his report sent to media. Also, something to keep an eye on is that on Tuesday, at the beginning of the session at 10 o'clock, members of Executive Board will consider the appointment of regional directors for 3 regions: Eastern Mediterranean, Southeast Asia, and Western Pacific. There are documents with the names of proposed candidates also on the website. On the website, you can also find the composition of the board and all the other information. There are some 45 items and sub-items on the agenda, and you can get all of that. For journalists who want, well, you can watch the sessions online. If you want to come and be physically present, let us know. There will be no room inside the meeting room, but there will be overflow room that can be used. So just let us know, and we will, from the media team, we will be in the building and we can facilitate your access. So that's there's also one side event that I would like to mention on Monday again from 1 to 2. There will be informal briefing on the processes related to the INB and negotiations on any treaty or any other legal document on the pandemic preparedness. So that's just a side event, and it's at 1 o'clock on Monday. So any other really questions, let us know, and we again hope that this media advisory with all the links will be sent today.
Thank you very much, Tariq. Lisa?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Tariq. Couple of things. Maybe you said it and I missed it, but is Tedros, going to make an opening statement to the executive board, and will you be sending us the speech also by email? Also, what time will that be? And then a question regarding the press conference, which is taking place fairly soon on the malaria vaccine, which is going to be introduced next week on a big scale. Is that a webinar, or is that exclusively for journalists in Geneva? And more importantly, is it possible to get the audio of that? Because too many things happen at the same time, and I'm totally schizophrenic, I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. So first on the DG, Dr. Tedros, yes, it will be Monday at 10 o'clock. Dr. Tedros will present his report to Executive Board, and we will have his report shared to media as always. You know, either as it's being delivered or just immediately after. You can also follow it online. Now, the press conference this afternoon is not WHO press conference, although we did disseminate the media advisory. So it is led by Gavi. You, in a media advisory, you have contact emails for Gavi, and any logistics, please contact, it's media@gavi.org. We have from our side, from WHO, one of the speakers, Dr. Kate O'Brien will speak. But again, you know, this is Gavi-led press briefing.
Thank you. Taha?
Yes. Thank you, Tariq, for useful information. Regarding Gaza, are you able to reach those who are affected by the diseases?
You're asking your question back on Gaza?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, Tariq, if you can talk about that. There is still, okay. Now, why don't Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so very quickly, so the information that I provided, the numbers are from the shelters. So we are working on trying to improve the disease surveillance and rapid response. Now, really, the issue is a broader. It's access to hospitals. You remember Dr. Tedros was talking how for 2 weeks we were unable to go to hospitals in the north to provide what they need. That includes fuel, medical supplies, and other things. So we need this access, and you have seen the press release that we issued jointly by 3 agencies a few days ago. We need to change the way the aid is being delivered. We need to have also economic sector being involved, because what is getting in right now is simply not enough, and we need those supplies to treat people who are injured, but also people who have chronic conditions, as well as people who may be infected with these infectious diseases that are circulating.
Thank you very much, Emma.
Thanks for all those details, Tarek. Just a couple of specific questions. I heard there's going to be a political debate on health emergencies, which will touch on Gaza. I was just wondering if you knew off the top of your head when that would be, and the side event. Would you kindly send us details? Is it at the WHO, and can we come, the side event on the IMB? Thank you.
Again, please. We'll have all the links in a media advisory that we will send once we get our platform working again. If you need really right now, just go on our website and check the provisional agenda, see what is there, and contact us if you want to come in person and be there.
Thank you very much, Tarek. Antonio.
You already mentioned that this malaria webinar is organized by Gavi, but are you preparing any press release concerning these malaria vaccines?
Not that I know, Antonio. I think the best thing is really to follow the press briefing, and if you have any other questions, we may organize something for you to provide you with information.
Okay, I think that's it, Tarek. You are off the hook. Thank you very much for this information. And let me just give you a couple of announcements to close. Just wanted to remind you that the Committee on the Rights of the Child is continuing the review of the reports. Today it was the report of Senegal, which will be concluded this afternoon. Next week we will have Russian Federation, Lithuania, South Africa, and then, as I told you last time, a meeting with the state parties on Thursday, 1st of February in the afternoon. I also wanted to remind you that on the 22nd of January, on Monday, the Human Rights Council's Universal Periodic Review Working Group will start. This is the 45th session of the group. They will examine the human rights records of 14 states. As you know, the UPR is a unique mechanism of the Council that calls for each UN member state to undergo a peer review of its human rights records every 4.5 years. The states to be reviewed at this session are, in order of the scheduled review, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, China, Nigeria, Mauritius, Mexico, Jordan, Malaysia, the Central African Republic, Monaco, Belize, Chad, the Congo, and Malta. It's the 4th time that these countries will be undergoing UPR examination, and the final outcome of the 45th session will be adopted by the plenary of the Human Rights Council at its 56th regular session taking place in June and July. I don't have more information on that. I'm happy to take your question, but I know that our colleagues of the Human Rights Council media team have sent a press release on 17th of January, and they are sending out also detailed information about each country under examination one by one. And I'll conclude my announcements and I'll give you the floor, Ben. The last thing I wanted to remind you of is the conference on disarmament. The conference will hold its first public plenary of the 2024 session on Tuesday, the 23rd of January at 10 a.m. under the presidency of India. Our Director General, Tatiana Valovaya, who is also, as you know, the Secretary General of the Conference on Disarmament, will address the conference at 10 a.m. on Thursday, 25th of January. As you know, the Conference on Disarmament takes place on 3 parts every year. And this year, these parts will go, the first one from the 22nd, as I said, to the 28th of March. The second part from 13th May to 28th of June. And the last from the 29th of July to the 13th of September. So I'll give you the floor. Ben, you had a question?
Oui, c'est une question, tu verras, qui est à la fois servicielle et éditoriale. Concernant mardi matin, est-ce que tu peux nous prévenir s'il y a des conditions de sécurité particulières pour accéder au palais, sachant que donc il y aura le UPR de la Chine? Et puis justement, est-ce que tu peux confirmer ou non les informations qui ont été révélées hier soir par nos confrères de Geneva Observer sur le fait que la Chine aurait expressément demandé des mesures de sécurité particulièrement renforcées à l'Office des Nations Unies à Genève, concernant notamment la possible présence d'opposants chinois de tout genre, et puis le fait que l'ONU à Genève devrait faire en sorte qu'aucune bannière ou aucun side event n'ait lieu dans les locaux.
Alors, sur la première question,